Hey everybody! On today's video I'm going to show you the comparison between Terraform and Bicep, and this is one of the first videos related to DevOps. If you are interested in this type of topic, please stay tuned. I'm going to create more of this. So let's start. This is the overview that we are going to discuss today. We are going to see what are Terraform and Bicep. Then we are going to divide these features into two to do the comparison between both. I'm going to divide it into integration and usability features. And for each of these features, I have different items in which I am going to explain you what are the similarities and what are the difference on each tool. And finally, I'm going to give you a conclusion on what are the main criteria that you should take into account when you are deciding which tool to choose for your project. So let's start. The first thing that we need to understand is what is Terraform and what is Bicep. Both are what we call a domain-specific language, which means they were designed for a particular purpose. In this case, they were designed for managing infrastructure. And that's what we call an infrastructure as code tool. This tool helps us to manage our infrastructure in an automated, repeatable, and descriptive way. Terraform was designed by HashiCorp and its intention is to be cloud agnostic, which means it can be used to manage Azure infrastructure, but also GCP or AWS. And it doesn't only apply to cloud, but also you can use it for any virtualization environment. For example, you can use it to create Docker containers or to create containers in Proxmox. On the other side, we have Bicep, which was designed specifically for Azure. That means that we can only use it for managing Azure infrastructure. The comparison is going to be divided into integration and usability features. So let's start by the integration features. Terraform uses a concept called state to store the mapping between our configuration and the real-world resources in the cloud. It also has some dependencies for each of the resources that we create. This is a JSON file and usually it is stored in a remote location, so it allows the collaboration between teams and also because usually it has sensitive information. On the other side, Bicep doesn't have a state file. Instead, it relies on incremental deployments. Infrastructure targets. As mentioned before, Terraform was designed to be cloud agnostic, which means we can use it to manage infrastructure on Azure, AWS, or GCP. But not only on cloud providers, but also we can use it for virtualization environments such as Docker or Proxmox. This can be possible because of something called a provider. A provider allows the interaction between Terraform and the services APIs. On the other hand, Bicep was designed specifically for Azure. We can't use Bicep to create infrastructure for any other cloud provider or any other environment that is not Azure. Processing and Azure integrations are related. Processing on Bicep happens on the Azure core infrastructure. That allows us some type of validation before the deployment happens. On Terraform, we don't have that because the processing happens in the Terraform side. The type of validation that we have are related to the Azure integrations. On Bicep, for example, before the deployment, we can have a validation that the deployment that we are going to do is not going to break any policy that we have in place or that we have the permissions to create the resources that we have in the template. Terraform is not going to do that and is going to fail during the deployment. Let's move on into usability features. In this section is more what they have in common than what they have different, but let's start with the language syntax. Both are descriptive language, which means the order in which we define the elements doesn't affect how the deployment is processed. For that, they have internal dependencies that is managed by each tool. They incorporate similar keywords and concepts such as parameterization, multi-file objects, and modules. Language helpers. Both offer similar tools. However, Terraform has a richer set of functionalities for certain tasks. Also, it has some meta parameters to create multiple resources or modules in one definition. Modules. On both tools, we have the concept of modules, however, they treat it differently. On Bicep, a module is simply another Bicep file, and its primary purpose is to improve the readability of the project. However, on Terraform, we have modules as the primary source for packaging and the distribution across teams, and a module can consist of multiple Terraform files. Also, in Terraform, we cannot only have modules in the local file system, but we can also download it from remote locations. Provisioning lifecycle. Both tools has a similar workflow. We have a validation stage. In Terraform, we have a Terraform validate. We have also a stage in which we can see what are the resources that are going to be affected without affecting them. In Terraform, we have Terraform plan, and in Bicep we have what if. And finally, we have the deployment of the resources. In Terraform, we use the Terraform applied, and in Bicep, we create the deployment for those templates. Azure coverage. This is one of the advantages that Bicep has over Terraform in this section, and it's because since Bicep is fully integrated with Azure, it has access to the latest features of the Azure Infrastructure Cloud. There is a new resource in preview. We can use Bicep to create it. We can't do this with the Terraform provider Azure RM because its intention is to create resources that are stable. However, there is a new provider called AIC API. We can use it if we want to have immediate access using Terraform. Finally, we will see community and support. Both tools has great support and documentation. However, the help that you will get depends on the nature of your issue. There is documentation for bugs in your documentation or in your source code. In Terraform, additionally, we have a documentation specifically for providers and for Terraform core itself. With all this, we have a good information to make a decision on when to choose Terraform over Bicep or vice versa. So if your application is intended to be deployed in a multi-cloud environment, you don't have other option. You should choose Terraform because that's the only tool that has the multi-cloud support. However, if you have a project in which you are doing a modernization of a client that always has used Azure, either our templates or the Azure portal, then it is more convenient to use Bicep. Why? Because in Bicep, we can export directly the templates in the portal and we can convert it easily into Bicep files. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoy and hope you learn now the difference between Terraform and Bicep, and that you have a good understanding on when to choose Terraform over Bicep and vice versa. So see you in the next one.